Now let's continue our discussion into the muscles acting at the forearm or the wrist joint. Now there are a ton of muscles that act on these joints, but we're just going to cover a couple important muscles. So we're going to start off with the Radiobrachialis muscle, which is highlighted in orange over here. And this muscle is going to assist in flexing our forearm. You can cause this muscle to contract and stand out in order for you to palpate by reaching underneath your desk and trying to lift up that table. So there's the Brachioradialis muscle popping out. You'll find it on the lateral aspect of your forearm and a little bit over the elbow region. So we mentioned its action, and its innervation is going to be through the radial nerve. Now let's move into some anterior muscles. So we are going to look at our anterior view of the forearm here, and this is going to be your Flexor Carpi Radialis. Flexor means that it flexes, right? Carpi is referring to the wrist, and radialis means that we have to have, didn't have that blurb pop up there. 1 second as I get that up. There we go. It's going to mean that it's going to abduct the hand at the wrist. So what that means is this muscle, when it contracts, yes, it's going to cause flexion of the wrist, but also this portion of the wrist is going to move laterally, or we can call this radial deviation. Now our other muscle, the Flexor Carpi ulnaris, is found on the medial aspect of the forearm. And this is going to flex because we have the word flexor in there. Carpi means it's happening at the wrist, and ulnaris will let us know that we are going to have a deduction take place, or this portion of the hand will move inward or more medially. We can also call this ulnar deviation. Next, we're going to go to a posterior aspect of the forearm. So here's a posterior view of the forearm, and in green here you could see the Extensor Carpi Radialis. Now we actually have two of these muscles. So the one highlighted there is your Extensor Carpi Radialis longus because it's longer, and this one here is your Extensor Carpi Radialis brevis. Brevis meaning it's shorter. And they're both going to work to extend and abduct the hand at the wrist. Next we have your Extensor Carpi ulnaris. So we'll find this on, again, the medial aspect of your forearm. And this will work to extend and adduct your hand at the wrist. Now let's take a look at some muscles that are acting on your fingers. We are in the anterior compartment here, but we have removed those anterior muscles that we discussed, like the Flexor Carpi ulnaris and Radialis that we mentioned. So the first one in more of an intermediate compartment of the anterior forearm is going to be your Flexor Digitorum Superficialis. This will help to flex our fingers or digits 2 through 5. And then our Flexor Digitorum Profundus is deep to the Superficialis. So you see it over here in the green. And that too is going to help to flex the fingers or digits 2 through 5. Now I wanted to show you the arrangement of these tendons because we have a lot of them, right? That Superficialis muscle has the tendons for digits 3 and 4 more superficial than digits 2 through 5. So sometimes if you are looking for this in a cadaver or something like that, you would look for those tendons kind of forming a square. And then the tendons for profundus, Flexor Digitorum Profundus that is, would be found right below them all in a row, just how you see it over here in the photo. Whereas in this one, notice how you only see the 2 tendons of Superficialis because those other 2 tendons are hidden below it. Now for our, and then you can also look at the tendons. So here is the Flexor Digitorum Superficialis. Notice how these tendons are almost shorter than the ones we would find with the, let me go back here, with the profundus, which are profoundly longer. Okay, now that we've talked about those Flexor Digitorum muscles, now let's take a view of the posterior forearm in order to identify our Extensor Digitorum. And I just realized I have an extra S on there Get rid of that S. It's Extensor Digitorum. We only have one Extensor Digitorum, and you can even see this by looking at the back of your hand and wiggle your fingers around. You'll see those tendons moving as you extend your fingers or flex and extend your fingers. They'll be moving around.